YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. Okay, so we did this Apprentice 1.5 meter STS. It's a great plane as a ready to fly. Many of you are going to eventually graduate past using the DXS transmitter. Now, there's not anything particularly wrong with this transmitter, but it's just not going to be full featured, and we're not going to be able to do programmability and things like that like what we do on our standard setup, which is going to be the NX10. Now, obviously the NX10 is also probably a pretty big leap from the DXS. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into the NX7e, which is like an economy offering of the NX10. Now, of course, you're gonna have less channels here. And so it might not give you every single thing you want, but the truth is this might get the job done. And the reason we believe that to be true is because we're in the NX series setup in the manual that comes with the model. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna dive right in with both feet. Now, if you've already watched the full unbox build radio setup, we do elaborate a little bit on this transmitter, but there are some features that we didn't show or use because we don't have the GPS module in here and we don't have the landing aid sensor installed in here, neither of which we recommend. That doesn't mean you can't do it. It doesn't mean we're not gonna, be friends still, but the truth is it's just not something we believe in, okay? We don't mean to poo-poo it, but we just don't agree with the need for it or the desire for it, okay? Safe, huge, really helpful. Landing aid sensor, GPS just adds complexity to an already complicated project for a beginner. We don't believe you want it or need it, okay? So that being said, if you buy one, just remember to bring this card with you. Some of these stick controls are still gonna be true, I believe, even when we set up our programmable transmitter, okay? So that being said, we have a battery installed, 3200 4S, full disclosure. We'll fly on that after we're done, just to prove out all the different things we did. And also full disclosure, we have moved all of our controls to the innermost holes for maximum control authority without changing the positions internally on the elevator or rudder. But we did change the rudder and elevator back there, just to be clear. If that doesn't make sense, you'll understand if you watch the unbox build radio setup, they were all on the outside hole. Now they're on the inside, so it should move and deflect the surfaces each further. That being said, there was also a little bit of trim on my elevator, but I don't know exactly what that is because when we do our now bind and fly profile, as opposed to the ready to fly setup, we're gonna have to remanifest that because we'll be starting from neutral controls. So if that makes sense. Now, that being said, I'd really like to use the NX10 if we run out of channels on the 7, but I don't think we will. Okay, so let's dive right in. So how do we start? First of all, there is a battery, it's plugged in. The ESC chimed, but there is a power switch on this that says on off. I'm also gonna demonstrate what the additional channel or the additional output control does if we have access to it via the NX7e. That being said, I believe there may be more channels, and if there are, we might have to go up to the 10 just to make it work. Okay, so rubber band's off. You can see there's some freshly cut grass clippings here. That's from yours truly flying it and doing some grass ops. This plane does okay in grass, by the way. I really like the Apprentice. It's been one of my favorites for years. And it's funny because I've had one in the basement for a long time. I actually got one from a friend, and I promptly initiated it upside down, not thinking a thing about it because the old safe used to let you initiate upside down. Now it stops you from doing that. But because I initiated it upside down, when I turned safe on, I was flying along, I flipped upside down, crashed into my neighbor's roof. Fortunately, I have a good relationship with my neighbor at the time and it wouldn't have been illegal. But nowadays it is basically illegal. Okay, anyway, left aileron, right aileron are plugged in currently to the A3230 flight controller. And then over here, you've got a receiver. Camera crew is gonna move to the other side. So as you can see, this is what I was talking about. There's hole positions on each of the outputs. The furthermost is going to the rudder. The innermost, or second to innermost, is going to the steerable nose gear. And then over here, we have lots of room for improvement on the actual elevator. That might be something we want to look into as well, because I felt like I could use a little bit more elevator still. In fact, I'm going to do that right now with a Phillips screwdriver. Now, if you're a brand new beginner, you may not want to do this, but I'm going to do it because I want a little bit more authority on the elevator. Okay, now there's another way you can get more authority on the elevator, and that is to simply make your center of gravity a little bit more tail heavy, okay? There's a huge range on this plane, so don't be afraid to use it because the plane will fly just about however you want. These cables aren't super long and it's making the plane tip, and so that's part of the reason why I am struggling. So I'm gonna see if I can lay this off to the side so that we can do this easiest possible way. And it looks like that's probably going to be about as good as we get. And that's okay, I can live with that. All right, so as you can see, we've got screwdriver tips. I got 2 sizes, let's go for the bigger one. Camera crew, you might need to help me hold this plane so it doesn't bounce out of my way. And I don't want to reach this far, so I'm going to slide it to the edge of the counter. If you're anything like me and you've hurt your back once in your life, then you don't want to be reaching that far. Okay, so now when I move this out, that's going to impact change by giving me more movement on the surface. That does not necessarily mean it's going to work well. Okay, so we're just going to leave that on the screwdriver, lay it down. Then we're going to pull this surface, we're going to pull this control arm off the servo, paying close attention to its position so that the splines line up exactly as it were when we started. Okay, this is also another way you can do mechanical trim on your plane. Be easier to do it out here, to be honest. But I'm gonna go ahead and undo this. Then I'm gonna rock this down the Z-bend. Okay, I'm gonna slide it off. So that was in the 3rd hole out. Why don't we go to the 4th, 5th, let's go to the 5th hole, all but one hole. I would normally go to the all the way out hole, but I kind of want to use a little bit of caution here. The servo may not have enough torque to actually run it all the way out there, okay? So now that looks like it was about where it was, right? Okay. The next spline position, just to be clear, would be probably pretty drastically different. That's the next spline position, and look at the elevator. See how it's up? Mm-hmm. I did move it when we started this process. So there's more neutral. That's where I'm guessing we need to be. Now, if I'm wrong, worst case scenario, we just have to make a mechanical trim by either taking this off and moving to the next or the previous spline position, or we need to just take this off. In the field, we can do that really quick and easy and make a fine-tune adjustment. So I'm gonna go ahead and just set this screw back in here. Okay, so during our unbox build radio setup, another thing you may have noticed, if you noticed it, there is a bind button right there that you can press. I did not hear a button press noise, like click. So I'm not sure if the heat shrink's really tight on there and it just isn't working, or if you just don't have to press it and you don't hear that audible click noise. If that doesn't work, you can also use a bind button on the flight controller, or a bind plug. Mm-hmm. Okay, now there is one additional port that is opened. Port 1 is opened, port 7 and port 8 is opened. Ooh, that means we're gonna run out of channels here if we wanna use channel 7 and 8.
What are you gonna use those for?
For flaps, to show people how they would use flaps if they were gonna use flaps. Why don't we just go with the 7? And then if you want 8 channels, it's possible you may be able to actually adapt those. I'm just fearful that people are gonna wanna know how to do that. All right, so I did need to do a little bit of research. I flipped to the next page here, and it looks like this is the layout. So channel 7 is open, or for the optional landing aid sensor, and then channel 8 is also opened, okay? Now, I'm not sure what opened / optional LAS means, but I'm torn because really, at the end of the day, if people are bridging the gap between doing something like an NX10 or an NX20 or an IX14 or an IX20 or something crazy, you know, this is gonna be a really popular choice. So I think what I wanna do is I probably wanna go ahead and just see what happens on channel 7 if we go ahead and use it and try to command and control it, okay? So just understanding there's a possibility we're gonna have some conflict. I think we've had that in the past. And so at the time we would have been using an NX8, which has enough channels, but the truth is we don't like telling you to spend money as you step through. If we know you're gonna end up here, why would we tell you to buy 4 transmitters in the middle? We don't do that on Brian Phillips RC. We just say, hey, listen, you're wasting your money. Just go from this straight to what you need, and then you can have like 250 planes in here, like I do someday. But because of the nature of this video, I think we're gonna go ahead and use the NX7 and see if it works, okay? If we run into problems, we'll know at some point, okay? So we're gonna turn on the transmitter. Now that we have all the surfaces to the inside holes, maximized our throws, now we can do that because originally we were on here. We have a high and low rates, and that's it. Okay, over here, we can change the rates and we can add an expo indefinitely and to our own taste, which is really nice. The same is true on the NX10. You would just have access to that 8th channel that you may or may not need, okay? So we'll leave this here. We'll have it close by in case we need it. All right, it's a very quick process, so it shouldn't be too hard to do this anyway. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump right into the radio setup portion of this. Obviously the unboxed build has been done already in the previous video. All right, so I'm gonna hit cancel and back, this and this. And then I'm gonna go to add new model. I'm gonna create an acro, that's what's here. If you scroll, it's gonna change that to something else, okay? So it's an acro. We're gonna create that. Okay, so then we're gonna go to model type. See, that's where you can also change that. Model name, now we're gonna scroll in the name, which is gonna be Apprentice STS 1.5 meter. So we're gonna do that real quick and we'll come back. All right, so we have the Apprentice STS 1.5 meter. Now you may have noticed that I scrolled this in off camera. I'm using a legacy keyboard, that's part of the reason, but all you do is you click and you scroll to the letter you want, and then you acknowledge it and you move over. Now, if you need to insert something, there's a special character in here, like this will add a character, and then you can also go in here and you can delete and remove a specific character, okay? So highlight that character, and then you can remove it like that. Or you can just leave blank after the fact and it'll be fine, okay? So once you've named it, now your keyboard might have like a QWERTY keyboard and you highlight. I don't like navigating that because I think it's confusing. I like this legacy keyboard, and you set that up in system setup. So hit back. Now aircraft. Okay, so aircraft type is where we set up the wing type. Okay, so that's gonna be in the manual. So page 29 on the manual here, NX series. So they're talking about the different channel assigns, input the model. Okay, well, whatever. I'm just gonna go through. So we have a normal wing type, we have a normal tail type. In this case, if you were doing flaps, you would turn this on at some point. One aileron, one flap, but I don't know if that's gonna work, so we're just gonna go with it for now. And I'm gonna select an image. Looks like this one's probably fine, but I'm just gonna scroll through and see if there's anything that looks better. I guess technically that'd be pretty dang close. It's not a tail dragger, good enough. So flight mode setup, do we have to do a flight mode? I don't know if we have to do a flight mode. It looks like dual rates, they talk about this here. Dual rates, expo.
No flight mode though.
No flight mode, okay. So I don't have to use that, but if you want to, you can set up a flight mode. So what you would do if you're gonna set up flight modes, I would assign it to switch D, and then I would just go out of here, and then you can, like if you're using the NX10, there'd be an audio event that would happen as you switch between those modes. So in this case, see how it says flight mode names? You see how it's moving the box? It's supposed to be 1, 2, 3. See how that box doesn't quite line up? That's always nice. Okay, so if I do this one, then I can click, cancel, cancel, it'll clear. And then I can put in, like, I want that to be AS3X. So I'm gonna scroll in AS3X and come right back. All right, so AS3X. So I'm gonna go to this one, highlight it, and then I'm gonna click, cancel, cancel, clears it, and I'm gonna do, I don't know if we can turn it off here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say, oh, it's gonna be AS3X, intermediate. There's intermediate. Okay, so this is intermediate mode. So it'll be in the middle. And then this one's gonna be flight mode 3 is gonna be, instead of flight mode 3, this one's gonna be full safe. So I'm gonna scroll that in, SAFE. It would also be called beginner mode on this type of flight controller. And then the one that I called AS3X would technically be called
Expert mode.
Expert mode. Okay, so just so you guys know if you're trying to figure that out from a brand new situation. So safe. Okay, so safe, sensor assisted flight envelope. Okay, so you see down here it says mode. Now why do we care? Because 3 modes allow us, if we want, we can separate out trims for each 3 modes, which is kind of nice if you need it. I don't have that currently turned on, I don't believe. And then we can go down to channel assign, and it says right here, they're talking about gear. Change gear from A to B. Okay. So that's B mode. That's going to be the mode. Okay. So really in our case, we want that to be on V. Okay. Because that's where we're going to have our settings. Now, you don't have to do it that way, but that's the manual suggests calling out B, because if you look at the way this DXS is set up, that's where they have safe AS3X at intermediate. Okay, so we're gonna put ours on D where we would normally assign it, because then I can set up flaps somewhere else, okay? So then it says aux1, change D to the I button. But look what happened to the aux6. aux6 is already pre-populated for flaps, see? So that might not work. So the aircraft type, we're not going to be able to set it up as flaps, which is a bummer, because guess what? Then you lose the flap mode, which means your elevator tie and all that goes away too. Okay, so we have to go back to normal. Then we have to go to flight mode setup. Everything looks good there. Flight mode name setup is still correct, and then channel assign. See, now this would have been set to D by default, but instead change D to the I button. Okay, so D to the I button. Okay, so that's our panic recovery. And they also do a holding pattern setup as well, but I don't know if we're gonna have that yet. Then aux2 will be on B, which is fine, because that's what I would use for flaps if I was gonna set up flaps. Now, I don't know if that's gonna work, because remember that was supposed to work with the landing aid sensor. So if you're using the landing aid sensor and you're doing it as a bind and fly, guess what? You need to go up to an 8 or a 10, or something with at least 8 channels. This has 7, okay? Just to be clear. And by the way, then you've got also additional channels to set up some of your gains and things like that if you would ever factory default things, okay? Not suggesting you do that, but just in case you're wondering. So this would be like aux2 would end up being flaps, but it's just gonna act as an aux now, okay? So that means we have to set up a basic mix. It's not that big a deal, but the thing is it's not gonna be tied to elevator, which is a pain. All right, so then continuing onward, they talk about dual rates and expo. Dual rates and expo for all 3 surfaces. I'm not gonna set them up separately. I'll show you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do them all on one switch. And then they have throttle cut on switch H. Okay, so we can walk out to the regular function list. It's got the RF live. I'm gonna click, I'm gonna scroll to timer, even though it's irrelevant. How long did we fly on that 4000? It was like 30 minutes and we were flying like the whole time. So why don't we just say 20 minutes, okay? Anything over 25%, I want it to activate, and I want the alarm to be tone, and that's the only option, okay?
Yes, because there's no voice.
There's no audio events to set up on this. Now, there'd be more audio events to set up in this menu, but that's fine. You've seen it a million times. If you watch any of our videos, you'll see it, okay? Then we can set up throttle cut, one of the most important things. Switch H, when it's toward my belly, I want it on. So you see this throttle here on the monitor? It shows that it's not active. Good. Now, when that's off, it shows that it moves. Very good. That's what we want to see. That's on. Oh, by the way, I was just going to point out something. You see how there's a screw there? I think that changes your pressure and whether or not it has like the detents. I can't remember which one that does. But I was wondering on this, because that's something that distinguishes. See, there's one there on this one. And there's one there, and there's one there, and one there, and one there. So you can change all sorts of things on these more sophisticated gimbals, okay? But I just wanted to point that out. I think that might allow you to change whether it's got detent. Click, 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 like that, okay? Now this also comes off, and then I think you can get to the rest of them, but you have to use a special key to do that. And I can't remember where that key is. Is that key part of this?
Yeah, it's under there.
Yeah, but like, no, it's right there. There it is.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I knew it was somewhere on here. So if you guys have the DX7e, there's a key. And this key will allow you to release some of these weird things like this. See? And once it's released, goodness gracious, there it goes. Then you can get in and do your mechanical adjustments. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this And I don't know if you can switch like the modes or just release the whole gimbal or what. But isn't that weird?
It is weird.
So that key reaches in and pops that tab back, okay? So then when you're ready to put it back on, you just drop it into position. It's just kind of like works though,
Yeah.
which is so strange.
It's kind of nice that they're covered up because then you don't get
Schmutz in there?
them.
Yep, that's right. Okay, so anyway, getting back to the point. So throttle cut is on. And then what we want to do is do rates and expo. So I want to set all of them to switch H, or excuse me, switch F. So ailerons are going to be set to switch F. In 0, I want 5%. In the normal mode, I want 10. And then in the highest mode, the most amount of expo, I want 20, and I want to drop the rates down to 90. Now you're going to notice there's a distinct difference between the way I set that up and the way they called out in the manual. They want 100% or 70%. So at 100%, they're going to give you 10% of expo, and at 70%, they're going to give you 5% expo. I disagree with that assessment because you lose too much of your throw in low rates. I want the throw, but I want more expo. That softens the stick so that you have to move the stick further to do what you want to do, which usually takes the jitters out for most beginner pilots, but you don't lose the rate. So when you're veering away from a tree, you can still do it. Also, moving those control horns to the innermost position is going to allow for more deflection, but that doesn't necessarily mean the AS3X isn't going to overcorrect and this thing isn't going to hump the air when it's flying along. Trying to correct. If that happens, we can adjust our hold positions, okay? So, but that's what we're going to do. This is the least amount of expo, 5% with full 100% rates. This will be the nominal, the middle, which would be about double. And then you can double that again and drop the rates back just a little bit if it's still too touchy. But you can get to the ground. That's the key. You want to have an exit strategy. Then in your maiden flight, you can see how it flies, how you like it, and whether or not you want to. Say you really like this setting here. Say you like this setting where it's softer on just the elevator. Well, then you can go in here and make this 20. You can make this 90. And then you can go to your highest setting and make that 40 and make this 70 or something like that. So then you still have a low rate if you want the low rate. But I trust you guys will work out the details. It is a guess and check thing, okay?
And it's very subjective.
It is very subjective. So the manual is not wrong and I'm not right. It's just, I do this all the time on like virtually every model and it has served me super well, but it's not perfect, okay? Just like anything else. All right, so that's everything we should do. We're gonna have to do a mix eventually, but let's go ahead and get bound up. So to bind, you can go in like this, disconnect the RF until you're ready, then it'll bind. This is gonna time out just so you know, so your bind failed. Or you can press and hold the I button while powering the system. So I'm just gonna click, get back to bind, so I'm ready, and I'm gonna highlight this, it'll probably still time out. Now this is off. I have my transmitter originally off and I don't want this prop to hit my wing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and reposition this slightly so as to protect my plane from itself. Now I'm gonna flip the power switch on right here. Okay, careful. If all hell breaks loose and that prop starts, and I can hold this until the battery dies. That would take a long time. It has gone into a flashing. I can't find what I need. So now I'm gonna try to press this button. You ready? You want to show them what's going on in here?
Yes, I can see from here.
See, it's just like we had the other day. There it goes.
Okay.
Okay, so that's in bind mode now. Just keep in mind, we have throttle cut on, bind. Normal dance. Initiation process, auto configuring. Okay, everything is on there. I cleared my timer, elevator up, elevator down. Roll left, roll right. We'll have to verify, yaw left, yaw right. Okay, so everything is working there. We're in green, which means we're in safe, right there. So we need to flip the access of the D switch or some such thing, because remember, we're on flight modes too now. Flight modes are not necessary, but that just happens to be the way we set it up. I need to test my throttle cut. So why don't I do that before I sit down and trust this plane? Throttle cut is currently on. Hold the wing.
Hold the wing back.
Perfect. Throttle up, nothing. That's what we want. Now, keep holding that. I'm gonna run it.
Yep.
See, we got clearance. Throttle cut's off. it's working, throttle cut's back on and tested. I can now trust this aircraft with the transmitter. You can let go of that too, okay? So now, what we've got is we've got ailerons. I can test this too real quick. Roll left, roll right, and you see what's happening? Look at all the stuff happening with all the surfaces. Safe is gonna do tons of stuff to try to make this plane flight easier for you, okay? Now this is intermediate, so it's gonna do the same stuff, and then when it's in advanced, it's just gonna do AS3X and safe, okay? And yes, that is the decal kind of crisping up if you hear that weird noise.
Crunchy.
Yep. All right, so I need to rotate the direction of this switch so I can go to servo setup. Because I just need to rotate it, I can go over here and just reverse whatever that is, which is gear, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now this is in AS3X, as indicated by that. It says AS3X, intermediate, and safe, okay? Also known as beginner. Pretty cool. All right, now throttle hold is on. Throttle cut is on, I should say. Throttle hold would be used for helicopters. Throttle cut is used for airplanes. Throttle hold adds in a pitch control as well, okay? We don't need to worry about that. All right, so that being said, this thing is totally set up for normal flight, but we gotta verify the direction the control surfaces are working, which we can do at any time. And what I wanna do now is I wanna test the viability of flaps. How are we gonna test that? I'm gonna basically actuate the surface. Right here, you see how aux2 is here? It's attached to the B switch. So when I move that switch, I would expect to see one of my ailerons move if I plug in an aileron. So this is the left aileron, okay? So I'm gonna disconnect that from channel 2 where it would normally reside, okay? Just so we can test this theory. Now I'm gonna plug this in, brown is down. I'm gonna plug this into channel 7. Once I plug this into channel 7, then we can distinguish whether or not the left aileron is respondent. I'm gonna put the switch in the middle, B, and I'm just plugging this in. It's kind of an awkward place to plug in, guys, but I mean, it can be done. Goodness gracious. That little servo cable going from the satellite receiver is getting in my way. Okay, so now ailerons are only gonna run one. Good. And that's what I was hoping to see, is movement, okay? Because we're on aux2, so channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so you see nothing's changing. So what does that tell us? We have learned the thing that we need to learn on page 30, that channel 7 is open/optional landing aid sensor. Do we have to do anything to actually make that work? I don't know. So here's the thing, okay guys? Here's the catch. This is an important catch to understand. You don't have to have flaps to fly this plane, but because of the nature of this flight controller, if you want to run it, you're gonna have to basically have an 8-channel receiver and tap into that channel. Okay, I'm going back to channel 2. Channel 2 is going to give me what I need. The other thing too is I guess I haven't tried flapperons to see if flapperons are supported. I'm pretty much 100% certain they're not supported. If they are, I would love to stand corrected. So let's try that next.
I have another question.
What?
Though. In the manual, it says the ESC is on port 1, but there isn't anything plugged into port 1. There's bind and then 1 is open. So 1 and 7 and 8 are open.
Does that mean it has a smart? So what?
If you flip the page to where it says what the channel assignments are, this says 1 should be the ESC.
Not smart.
But there's nothing plugged into 1.
Smart ESC is 6. So if it's a not smart ESC, it'd be channel 1. Okay. If you have a smart ESC, it's plugged in here. Okay. So the smart ESC is going to give you telemetry. So if you scroll down to telemetry, see how it says, oh, air and switch. Cool. So all you have to do is scroll over. There's your smart ESC data. And also we have our battery voltage, which is super nice. You can see the BEC temperature too. It's getting hot. Holy crap. Look at that. 243 degrees.
Wow.
Why the heck is it so hot? Probably because we haven't done anything yet. That's very bizarre. Now, I don't believe... What the heck? Air and switch? I've never seen such a thing. That's pretty weird. Okay, so anyway, getting back to the point. The answer to your question is no, port 1 would still be reserved, I believe, for an ESC because it's still going to be responded to throttle. Now, the only way I could test that is to dangerously run the throttle with all this stuff disconnected. I don't want to do that.
Okay.
So the short answer is it says it's open for the optional landing aid sensor. So if you pause, we'll look, we'll see if we find anything. If we don't, we'll just report back. All right, so just to be clear, if you need to use the 8th channel, you're gonna have to have an 8-channel transmitter, which is something that we griped about when we did this on the Carbon Cub S2, just to be clear. So basically, channel 1 is tied up for a non-smart ESC, even though we have a smart ESC installed, and then the rest of the channels are used up. So if you decide to add flaps on here, just remember you're gonna have to have an 8-channel transmitter, and that's really the moral of the story. If you do that, just keep in mind, you should be able to use a regular aircraft type because then that 8th channel will be accessible, it'll be no problem. Because remember, channel 7 was latched onto, that's where it was assigned. And that was one of my biggest complaints on this flight controller, is that you add complexity where complexity is not necessarily absolutely necessary, right? And so that's been one of our big complaints on this 3220 flight controller. And that's a bummer because I really, really like this plane. It doesn't take anything away from the way the plane works in and of itself, because at the end of the day, if you really wanted to, you can actually peel out this receiver and you could just put a different type of receiver in there. There's nothing stopping you from doing that other than maybe you don't want to blow that money on it, you know?
Right.
So that being said, just keep in mind this has an SRXL2 micro receiver, which you could take out and use in another application somewhere else as well. And then the flight controller, of course, will work, but you have to have another plane that's configured and using all the same kind of strange features. Whereas if you were to go to a 630, an AR630 would be super basic. You're gonna still have AS3X and safe. You're not gonna have intermediate. You're not gonna have like some of the weird features, the GPS features, the landing aid features, but like we don't even really want those.
Right.
I just want a basic plane that's gonna do all the things really well that we expect them to do with spectrum level technology here. That being said, if you're brand new to flying RC airplanes and you're watching this and you're somewhat overwhelmed by the details in this video, I don't want to discourage you by overwhelming you. I just want you to be aware that we're speaking to an audience of people that might also understand a little bit more than where you are right now, okay? So some of the stuff I say may be irrelevant to you because if you don't want to have the NX10 or something like an NX8 that has enough channels, and by the way, I'm not going to recommend you get the 8 because if you need the 8, you're going to want the 10.
Yeah.
Okay. Good money after bad is not what we do on this channel. We do not recommend you spend money on intermediary steps because that's what these guys want you to do. We want you to get the most out of your dollars and cents, okay? And that's where we bring some value. So we hope we've answered your questions. Obviously now we can check the control surfaces.
I think you were just gonna say it too. The red light is on, which would be, is that the correct orientation?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're gonna check the flight surfaces. First of all, actually, while I've got this, I can show you. Going that way, going that way. You can see the rudder is moving the correct direction to resist the movement. Can you tell?
I can tell.
Elevator up, elevator down. I can see it this time. Aileron up, aileron down. Okay, give me I'll just give you guys a different shot of this. Okay, so as I move the resisting, you can see the rudder is resisting movement. Now watch the elevator. Elevator's up, elevator's down. It's a little bit harder for you to see that one, but the ailerons are super easy. As I roll, it goes up. As I roll, it goes down. As I roll, it goes up. As I roll, it goes down. You have to make sure that it goes the opposite direction of whatever the environment impact is on the plane, okay? Now, the second thing we have to do is we have to make sure that we have all the surfaces going the right direction from our controller, okay? Because remember, this is programmable. So up, down, yaw left, yaw right, yaw left, yaw right, okay? Just checking the steering wheel as well as this. Roll left, roll right, roll left, roll right. So they're all going in the correct direction. They're all functional. And the only thing we didn't try was flapperons. Now, I don't believe flapperons are gonna work, but it's still worth a shot to try it real quick. Throttle cuts on. Scroll down to system setup, disconnect RF, then the lights shut off. Then I can go to aircraft type. I can go to flapperons. This will probably not work, just to be totally clear. Elevator up, elevator down, roll left, roll right, yaw left, yaw right. Now let's go to monitor, because I don't know where flaps are set up. I'm just holding the plane just in case. Okay, so there's no movement on aux2, doesn't make any change. But as you can see, when I move these, they do appear to be moving in the correct direction. Also, my mode is now not changing, okay? So give them a shot of the front. I'm moving switch D. It doesn't change anything. That's because there is a different connection. Now come back around. See, gear is changing and it's not changing because we have now consumed the wrong setup for the plugs. Now, ironically, the ailerons still work, the elevator still works. I'm just trying to think. We have throttle, obviously throttle, I'm gonna test. Throttle cut is off and I'm giving throttle, it's working. Throttle cut's on and now it's down. I'm gonna hit the panic button and see what happens. It doesn't appear to be assigned, okay?
Okay.
Because normally you would hit panic and it would change one of the values, but it didn't. Now, we can go to flap system and we can turn it to a switch. Might as well switch B. Let's see, let's just see how they're moving opposite directions. That pretty much screwed us, okay? So I'm gonna cancel that, and we've already established that that's not gonna work because that's gonna change our mode, okay? Now, the reason it's changing mode is because we're actually changing aux2, and that is interfering somehow with some other function of the plane. Okay, so we have now established that within system setup, without some more serious changes, the aircraft type cannot just be simply switched to flapperons. So I'm gonna go back to normal, walk back out of the menu, and now things should be back to normal. So we're gonna quickly confirm that they are back to normal. Elevator up, elevator down, elevator up, elevator down, roll left, roll right, yaw left, yaw right. You see how smooth this is? I don't quite understand why this is so herky-jerky looking, but in the air, you won't notice it. It's weird, because you should notice it. It's pretty herky. Look how smooth that is. See that?
Yeah.
That's super smooth. Even the ailerons are kind of jumpy, you know? Just kind of strange. So one thing I might try real quick is I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna click, I'm gonna scroll down to, is it under bind? Nope. No. System setup, disconnect RF. F mode setup, we already did that. I'm looking for one thing, frame rate. Automatic, force DSM2, automatic, servo, default, hybrid. Let's try the hybrid and see what happens. Now I walk back out, elevator up, elevator down. It's still jumpy, still kind of jumpy. Trying to figure out where that noise comes from. Yeah, it's peeling this tape as it moves. There is a decal applied to the top of the tape joint. And as it moves, it's allowing it to flex on and off of the seam, okay? So the only way to resolve that would be to like literally squish that tape in really tight. And that helped a lot actually. So you see what I did? I take my middle finger in this case, and I'm taking the finger now, and I'm just pressing hard to adhere that tape. There's just one spot over here where it's really noisy, okay? It's a lot better. It's still not perfect. All right, so what have we established? We've established that 7 channels does not get you access to flaps because the landing aid sensor that we're not even using interferes with our ability to use that. That sucks. Also, the GPS does not interfere with that, but it is a factor that we also don't recommend, okay? Now, if you do put those features on, make sure you keep access to this because you have to use your stick positions to set certain activities. Just be clear on that, right? Now, also you see the light changing as I flip my D switch here. You can say go from AS3X to intermediate to safe. Now watch the controls. I'm gonna put full control and then I've got even more, right? Make sense? That's because in safe, we're gonna limit the amount of output, okay? All right, so now that we have covered all those details, we're gonna go fly this again on the 3200 that's in there. And by the way, all we have to do is scroll over to our Smart ESC and we can see how much battery voltage we have. That's really nice. Now, admittedly on the DXS, we do have feedback right there. Those lights come up, okay? So you can tell, and it's pretty helpful and it does really work. But on this, we're gonna have a lot better feedback. But on this, we would have even more because then I would have audio call outs I could turn on, which is really nice. So is the NX10 the way to go if you're thinking about doing a programmable radio setup on something like this? To be honest with you, if you know you're in it for the long run, just get what you're gonna need to do as many planes as you can, okay? Yeah. And so that's why you jump into this, even though it's considerably more money than this, which is considerably more money than that, okay? Now, could you also, by the way, there is a power switch on this. Watch this. Then it stops humming.
Yes.
Which is kind of annoying. Should you go here though? That's a really subjective question. If you look at the dollars and cents, this is what I tell people to do when they're gauging the spending choice on a transmitter, because I've had this question a million times asked. You know, I've got the DXS, I've got the Apprentice, I've got the Apprentice 700 millimeter Stoll Apprentice, the little UMX. You know, do I need to go up to something like this? You probably don't have to, but I'm gonna tell you this, you're never gonna regret buying a more expensive transmitter if you're in the hobby, but you will regret buying a cheaper transmitter. I mean, this is coming from personal experience. I think my first transmitter was a series of transmitters that my grandpa had bought, and this is because he didn't understand what binding meant. So he thought he had to get a new transmitter each time he got a plane. Well, the reality is you used to have to do that. Back when you were buying crystal sets, you had to share crystals, you know, and you might have to take the crystals out of a receiver and the crystal out of your transmitter and then switch a different pair in if you were at the flying field and somebody else was flying on your frequency. Okay, nowadays you don't have to do that. DSMX takes care of that. DSM2 took care of that, and DSM took care of that, I believe, because that's spread spectrum technology. You don't need to understand how that works, but basically it's frequency hopping, which means that this connection is addressed uniquely now to this transceiver and this transceiver. They are transceivers, not just transmitter and receiver, because we have telemetry data. So this is talking back to me and I'm talking to it. So there's not only data coming from here to tell this where to put each of these control surfaces, but then this is saying, hey, this is how hot my ESC is. Hey, this is how fast my motor is moving. Hey, this is the altitude. This is the barometric pressure. This is the GPS, if you have those features turned on, because you'd have to have that feature in here. Hey, this is how far I am from the ground. Hey, this is how fast I'm approaching the ground. Hey, this is my attitude. Hey, this is, and then this thing says, okay, do that thing, right? So really, this does a lot, but so does this. The transceivers involved here, and we generally call these receivers, we generally call these transmitters. Because generically speaking, this is mostly a transmitter.
Primary function.
This is mostly a receiver.
Yep.
In this case, there's also a flight controller. Again, coming back to, did Horizon develop the best possible product they could given the technology at the time they did? I'm sure they did. But there's some misses in the marketing on this Apprentice STS. Are they forgivable? Absolutely, because it's still a great plane, and I still think it's a plane that's worth getting. But I feel like there's so many things over here off in left field that like just don't really make sense for a beginner. Even though beginners think they make sense, the marketing guys are trying to get people to buy a plane that does this, when really what they need is just a plane that does this really good. The good news is the plane does all those things really good. So you get that good package, but you just have these features if you want them, okay? So, and the other good thing is because they didn't set the price point way up here where all this stuff comes that you don't need or don't want, you don't even buy it then, okay? Really simple. All right, hopefully we answered all your questions. This Apprentice STS video is the culmination of many years of experience. We know what's important, we know what's not important. We try not to beat a dead horse on the unimportant information, but at the same time, we understand this is a lot for a beginner to get. And that's why you have to understand something. As a beginner in this hobby, it's complicated stuff. You don't have to fully grasp every detail to fly, but you do need some of it to be safe and to fly. And we're gonna try to give you all the things you need, and then we're gonna build on that a little bit as we go every time we do a new model. So when you're buying your F7F or you're buying your Cessna 182 or you're buying your Super Timber, you're buying your Timber SWS, or you're buying one of these other planes or the Carbon Z or the F86 or whatever it happens to be, doesn't even have to be a Horizon model. This of course is a Horizon model made by E-flite brand. This is a Horizon transmitter made by Spectrum, which is a brand of Horizon Hobby being one of the world's largest distributors of hobby product and also manufacturer of hobby product. And so really at the end of the day, they do a good job on the stuff they sell, okay? Make no mistake about it. All right, so we hope we answered all your questions. The moral of the story is, have you decided to fly? Because really that's our objective, is to say, objection 1, kill it. Objection 2, kill it. Objection 3, kill it. And the thing is, if you can't answer the basics about how this plane works, you're not gonna be comfortable flying. Most people won't. And if you're really reckless and you don't care if you really understand stuff and you're good flying, that's fine too. We're gonna try to help you have the basics so you can take that reckless abandon and still kind of like put it to good use so you still find success. We're trying to strike that balance between complete, put you to sleep, and some people do use Brian Phillips RC. It's been prescribed for insomnia for years. Yes. Except for the screaming. Yeah. Sometimes that'll wake you up.
The night terrors.
But anyway, getting back to the point, the idea is we try to cover a broad plethora of details that most average people don't even understand matter. But at the end of the day, these guys are not explaining it in the manual. They'll give you the tip top of the iceberg, and I'm going to try to give you a little bit more, but I can't even cover the whole thing. All right, I want to fly. So what we're going to do next is we're going to fly. I'm not sure. Camera crew, are we going to fly at the beginning or the end of this video?
We'll probably fly this at the end because the main
chronological
portion is...
Okay, yeah, that's right. So you guys have already seen the unbox build radio setup that got us into this. You've also seen the flight video where we flew this on the Baden with this. Now you're going to see the flight video where we're flying on this. And it's going to help you to understand. Also, full disclosure, we did improve the amount of throws on all the surfaces, so the plane is going to perform a little bit better, and our wind is about the same as what it is, which is shifty and obnoxious. Yeah. Meaning it's dead calm, thermaling, and then occasionally 15-mile-an-hour gusts, which is not ideal. But it's okay. If you're a brand new pilot, just remember, setting the stage for success involves setting this up right, but it also involves picking the right time, which is probably even, I don't want to say it's even more important. It is important. If you don't have a plane that will fly well in perfect conditions, then you're going to be screwed anyway, okay? So set the stage for the best possible circumstances, buy the right plane, buy the right battery, set the right transmitter up, do all the features you need, okay? Get yourself ready at home. Don't do that at the field. If you do it at the field, you're going to find failure, I promise you. You're going to drop a screw in the grass, you spend an hour trying to find it, okay? Secondly, wait for the correct weather. Thirdly, make sure you pick a good site. Make sure you got lots of room. Our area may look pretty and beautiful for flying, but it's pretty tight, okay? We got about 500 feet between these tree lines. That's not very much room. Most people don't fly quarters that are that tight. They might fly through a corridor that's that tight, and there are people that fly through much tighter territories. Believe me, I used to fly in a lot tighter than that. But when we're done with our pond, which are literally working on right now, let's give them just a quick shot. We have our beach. That's a nice pair out there. Check that out. Wow. I like them big, but good Lord. See that? That's going to be our beach. And then they're out here working right now. They had to bury a septic line so that our septic system didn't back up when the pond floods, which is surprisingly easy because the first day that the pond was full, it was pretty much at flood stage. We got 8 feet of water in there overnight.
Yes.
3.75 inches of rain, then 0.75 inches of rain the same morning, and then another inch in the evening.
Yeah, a little more.
And we had an inch the night before. So that's like
About
6 inches.
A little over 6 inches.
In like 40 hours. That's crazy. And we also lost a tree, and we lost 2 huge trees over there, which we still have to clean those up. This one's done. But this is right on the heels of Joe Knoll, 2024. Yes, it was good. And now it's over. All right, we're gonna fly this thing. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for learning. We're gonna help you find success, but in order to be successful, you do need to spend a little bit of time and effort and money. Okay, we're not asking for money, but we are asking you to buy these planes from the links when you decide to buy. Our links are listed down below. It'll be a BPRCMe short link, and it will say something like Apprentice. Okay, you click on it, you're gonna see this plane. You're gonna see the smaller 1.2 meter, which is really good too. You're gonna also see the Stoll Timber, which is like a tail dragger.
Stoll Apprentice.
Stoll Apprentice, sorry, I don't know what I said. My apologies. And when you follow any of our links, it's gonna give you results for all the different planes that are in that line. So make sure you pick the one that you meant to pick. And also, if you have questions like, hey, I lost my manual, I wanna find it, just click our link. You can follow the link like you're gonna buy it, and then just scroll down, you can find that information. It doesn't hurt us if you don't buy. You get to review everything. You get to collect your RC bonus bucks and all that stuff, depending on whichever manufacturer. If there's coupon codes, you can still use all that stuff. Nothing changes for you except that they know that we had a part in sending you there, and then they pay us commissions. That's how we do it. We don't hide behind that. We don't mean to trick anybody. That is literally as simple as it is. Okay, there's no catch. The catch is they know, they pay. You don't, which is nice. Yep. And also, if you want to support us in other ways, we have Patreon, PayPal for one time, and then we have YouTube Super Thanks for one time, and then YouTube members, which we're just up to 50 members on YouTube. Wow, it's crazy, mind blown. That's pretty awesome. So Patreon and YouTube members, we're up to, you know, like over 100 people supporting us or some such thing, which is pretty cool. So we're really excited about that. But we said this at the beginning, and we'll say it repeatedly. There's some people that just got 20 bucks. They want to throw you 20 bucks. It makes us feel good. It warms our heart. But at the end of the day, I would rather you buy what you need, love it, and let them pay the bill. Okay, seriously. Because everybody wins in that environment, you know? We get to grow the hobby we love. We get to encourage you guys and bring you up to speed when you need help. But then they send a check, and we get all taken care of. Everybody gets taken care of. It's a good ecosystem to operate within. And also, we have freedom to say how bad this sucks, if we think it does. And I'm not saying this is perfect, because it's not. And we pointed out some flaws, okay? But at the end of the day, it's one of the best trainers you can get. Now, is it the best? No. Is it the fastest? No. Is it the cheapest? No. Is it the bluest? No. It's none of those things. We don't do that crap on Brian Phillips RC. What we do is we show you what it is, and you make up your own mind if it's worth buying. Just buy from the links when you do decide that you love it, because it's awesome. All right, we're gonna fly next. So stay tuned, we're gonna get geared up. We'll see you on the runway. Folks, so we're out here in the crosswind. We've got a little bit more control surfaces, and of course, we are now on the NX7, as you know from being inside with us. So, throttle cuts off, going into the wind. May have some trimming. Oh man, so good. That's like 50% throttle. I have so much better control authority. That's crazy. I didn't think it'd be that big a deal, but I mean, I feel like I'm just in control of that thing now. I had no idea it was gonna be this big of a difference, folks. Okay? Tight turns, easy to control, easy to fly, super smooth on the gimbals. And it's still a little bit windy, and I just don't feel it at all. I don't feel any issues. And it just does exactly what I want it to do. Having the extra throws is a big improvement though, I gotta say. You might as well just set them up on the inside holes right out of the box. Now, whether or not you wanna do more than that, like we did for our rudder, Look how much rudder authority. I'm giving it like 50% input. Look at that. That's so good. I can do like flat turns now. Look at this. Okay, maybe not quite flat turns, but pretty dang close.
But if you're a true beginner, is it too much throw?
I don't know that it would be too much throw. I think it's more like you have the authority there if you need it. And I'm just telling you, the Expo and dual rates are so much of an improvement, folks. Look at this, and we're flying with the wind. I'm gonna do that same pass the other direction. We'll go a couple steps back. If you guys hear the construction equipment in the background, just remember it's a good sign. It means we're making progress. See, now the wind is at my tail again. What the heck? Is it just like avoiding me?
I think it's going around the house, so it's
Oh, yeah, that could be what's going on.
kind of coming both ways.
But folks, I gotta say, the Apprentice 1.5 meter the Apprentice 1.5 meter is just amazing. It's the Apprentice STS 1.5 meter. Set it up with your NX7e or set it up with your NX10. You do need the 8th channel if you want to do flaps, guys. We already figured it out on this plane. We figured it out before. I think we did that also on our Carbon Cub S2, which has the same SRXL2 receiver, the little satellite hooked up to the 3020 or 3220 flight controller. Okay, now no landing aid sensor, as you can tell from that bounce. If you want to call it a landing, it's more of like a bouncing. By the way, mix a little bit of rudder into your roll, and even with that high dihedral, you can make some pretty clean barrel rolls here. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good considering it's as windy as it is. I thought it was supposed to be calm today.
Well, the forecast is the same for all day, but like you said this morning,
It's fleeting, guys.
we live in Iowa, so.
Going between the Cherry and the Fox Eagle killing zone there. Have you noticed that reflection on the wing? Like it just,
Reflection?
yeah, it's kind of like that decal that's black and orange. There's a spot where this is like the sheen of it just reflects.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really funny because it almost looks like it's got lights, but it definitely does not have lights, which, you know, people could probably complain about that, and they should. There is technically a light on the nose of this plane, or excuse me, the on the windscreen. Hard to see in the bright though.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you're gonna see it. You see it? Isn't that cool? It's just right where it needs to be. Hang out in ground effect with this plane, guys. It is fun to fly in ground effect. So if you're brand new to the hobby and you're thinking, hey, I want to get something I can fly, I want something I can enjoy, I want something I can see, you know, I don't have perfect eyes. Let's do an inside pass here. Sorry to walk in front of the camera, folks. We don't often do that here on Brian Phillips RC, but we try our best. We really do try to put out good content that's not only actionable for you as one of the world's best audience members, but we also want to help give you answers to questions that you never knew you had. That's why you come to Brian Phillips RC. Where's the manned aircraft?
He is way, way, way
Yep, I see him.
far.
Here, let's go up so the people can see.
Mm-hmm.
See him?
Way back in
Always
the
be
clouds.
aware of your manned aircraft. See it? Going the same direction as me. Now I'm going opposite. Pretty cool. Now in the bowl. I want to see if the eye switch still works, so I'm going to go up to altitude and just check that. Okay, panic mode, there it is. Pretty cool. Very good, works perfectly fine. And it breaks out of panic mode just like before, after a few seconds. So if you're used to not having panic mode, you can actually set up panic mode in safe, but just keep in mind you need an additional channel for it, and it doesn't have to be pluggable. So folks, remember, if you have channels that are not plugged into an AR630, for instance, you can still use those channels to do things that are then independent of other functionality. If you didn't know that, that's why you're on Brian Phillips RC. We're gonna help you figure out how to squeeze the most life out of your RC aviation experience. And we have a lawnmower. Yep. So there it is, guys. The Apprentice 1.5 meter It's gonna give you everything you need, and then a little bit more, and I gotta say the AS3X feels locked in. Let's go to safe here. Okay, here's safe. It's got a little bit of a lean to the left, but nothing I can't manage. As soon as I let go of the sticks, it pretty much rights itself. Okay, hard on the throttle there. Pretty good amount of bank angles to be able to fly still. I'm in safe, guys. Let's see if I can push it down now. Yep, that's as much as I can push it down. Now I can go up, I just can't go down very much, okay? So going into the wind now, watch this. It's just like, you can't hardly bring the thing down, but you can turn it down, meaning you can use the rudder to get you down. Woo! Okay, so I flipped it. Out of safe. Intermediate is gonna give you just a little bit more authority, but you gotta keep in mind, this plane, it's designed as a trainer, okay? So if you're getting this, it's gonna try to resist any sort of downward pressure on the elevator. They do not want you to crash into the ground. But the truth is, you need down. Let's put it in the grass. Still very rough here, folks. I need to get a roller so I can roll this. Full disclosure, you already know that if you watch the channel a lot. But the grass hops here are sometimes leave a little something to be desired. But here we go. Full up elevator. Get it moving. Once it's moving, you should be good, even though you're kind of cutting the grass a little bit. Jumps into the air. Camera crew is going to move off of the runway. Very good, very good, very good right there. Then down the runway. Lots of wind, and that thing is doing great, folks. The one thing this plane doesn't do good is landing in a hurry. And so one thing you can do is if you want to land in a hurry, use grass ops. It'll slow the plane down a lot quick, and you won't roll out quite as much. But you still don't want to force the nose into the ground because it is a tricycle. So what you want to do is come in here, and you can use slip, which is where you use ailerons. You use ailerons and rudder. So you kind of bring them together like this. And if the plane is flying like this and you roll this way, then normally you would coordinate with your rudder and you would make it turn to the right. Well, in this case, you would roll and then you use the rudder opposite and it slows the plane down. Or you roll and you use the rudder opposite and it slows the plane down. So you bring it into kind of like a knife edge and you use the whole body of the plane to slow itself down. It works really effectively. Okay, full up elevator. And it's a real thing they use in real aircraft. Get off of the nose gear and then get it in the air. So I'll demonstrate the slip again. Now that's something you can use because you don't have flaps, or if you set up flaps on your 10-channel transmitter or 8-channel transmitter. Okay, so slip, 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 slip. You see how it slowed down? Really good for us there. That's something they won't teach you. Well, they will, because it's on Brian Phillips RC. He will teach you that. Okay, so watch this. Now, a little bit of throttle still. Slip, 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 and then out of the slip and set it down on its main. So I'm gonna go on to the runway here. Okay, now taking off, give it throttle, pull back on the stick just a little bit as it speeds up. You don't want to pull the stick before you're up to speed because you're just creating drag. It's going to make it harder to speed up, and it's going to make it a more jerky takeoff. And who wants a jerky takeoff? Okay, now slowing it down, a little bit of slip, a little bit of slip, a little forward elevator pressure to keep that nose down, and then out of the slip and put it down. So you can get the thing down in a tight spot. A little squirrely on that takeoff, some crosswind, tried to lift the nose before I could get to it. And you'll also notice I'm landing into the wind. That's the other thing you want to keep out in front of you, and that would be the wind in your face. When you're taking off, you want the wind in your face. When you're landing, you want the wind in your face, okay? It's gonna help you do things like that where you have a pretty decent looking landing, okay? Now, I'm gonna go into safe and show you what a safe takeoff looks like. It's gonna look almost exactly the same. The only difference is you have to appreciate that there's gonna be limitations on roll and on pitch. So that might impact how the takeoff goes, okay? Full throttle, full up elevator. And that's even in safe. I had a lot of roll control, but I also got really close to those tall grasses. Which, by the way, I don't know if you guys can realize, but those grasses like half as tall as, it's actually up to my chest.
Yeah, it's tall.
Got a lot of grass production this year. That's full down elevator. Look at this, guys. It's almost unbelievable. Full down elevator. And that's about what you're gonna get out of it. So if you're trying to fly in conditions that are poor and you're depending on safe, just remember, like, it's gonna be harder to get that thing down. You need to be aware of that. Okay, now intermediate. Let's show you what intermediate looks like. Intermediate's still gonna right the aircraft, but it's gonna let you bank it more. You see how it's banked? Look how much it's banked with full rudder and aileron. Now I'm gonna go back to full safe, and it's gonna limit it a little bit more. So it's gonna narrow that pitch angle just a little bit, okay? Also in intermediate, it doesn't let you tip it over, but it does let you go down a little bit quicker, okay? And then full AS3X off with the safe, and then of course you could do whatever you want. Now with the wind, this is not the way you wanna land, but you can see how much airspeed we have. The airspeed is the same, the ground speed's higher, right? Because we're in the air, air is a fluid, the fluid's moving. You wanna make sure you reduce the the ground speed for landing, and reduce the ground speed for takeoff so that you can do the least amount of wear and tear on your landing gear, okay? So now my inside out loops are more manageable. Yeah, it just kind of flips out of it. See, watch this. Okay, full throttle, get some airspeed, inside out loop. Oh, it's just not quite enough to get it over there with a dihedral. You can do it. I'll try to do it with the cloud here, hon. Inside out loop, can we do it? Yeah, it's more of like an inside out barrel roll. But you can do all the fun things you want. You just have limitations of power, and you have limitations of drag because you have such a very, very lifty wing design, okay? Lifty wing designs are very good for beginner planes, but they're not good for 3D performance sometimes, okay? Don't be afraid to use that rudder. You need to use the rudder. Keep it on the mains if you can. I'm sorry, I want to fly more. So that's one thing about this plane too that's really cool, is that even though I have flown hundreds of different planes, I am just loving flying this Apprentice. And some of you guys are gonna say, whatever, you're just saying that because you want to sell some. Well, I actually do want to sell them because I think it's a great way to get people into the hobby. And yet I do really like flying it. It's a super fun plane. About the only thing I wish I had, let's see if we have that. Do we have we don't have the Avian ESC menu, because even though this is a smart ESC, it's not an Avian, so there's no thrust reverse. Thrust reverse would allow us to stop this on a dime. But I don't want to use thrust reverse on this plane. You don't need it. I want flaps though. Flaps would be fun. Now, that being said, that's the only drawback to using the NX7e in this application. Because if I used my NX10 or my NX8, I would have access to that last channel. And the flight controller obviously has the pluggable channel, so you can plug in a singular servo, or you can use a Y cable and set up 2 servos so that you can actuate the flaps in the same direction. Just make sure you don't point them opposite directions so that the flaps actuate in opposite directions. Now, to cut in flaps, we've done it so many times in the years past, it's really not that hard. And you can make this thing fly so slow, and it'd be so much fun. And by the way, even though it's not a very bright screen on the economy version, you can see right there, we have plenty of juice left. I don't know if you guys can see it on the camera, but I can see it in person. And just dragging out that takeoff. So much fun. A little kiss of aileron just to roll it. And guys, I gotta say, this thing is flying phenomenal. That's supposed to be phenomenal, but I said it all Italian-y. Is that a thing?
No.
It's not a thing? Dang,
it's not.
Thought it was a thing. So guys, if you're brand new to RC aviation and you're looking for something to wet your whistle, maybe you've flown a couple of these little like E-sheen jobbers, little fun toys, but still not quite hobby grade, and you're looking to get into something hobby grade, I'm telling you, even though this is foam and it's a trainer, it's definitely in the hobby grade experience level, and it's gonna let you do all the different things you can do with a bigger, more sophisticated, and even more advanced plane. But yet it's gonna do it in a way that's gonna be somewhat tame, manageable experience. But don't let anybody tell you the lie that flying is easy. Flying is undesirable because it's too much work. It is exactly the opposite. It is very challenging and it is very rewarding. But that being said, it's also as easy as it's ever been to learn to fly today as it ever has been, or, well, I mean, sure, we're gonna keep coming up with technology that's gonna make it easier and easier. But the truth is, guys, learn to fly today. Don't put it off. The beer truck is just around the corner trying to take you out. You could get struck by lightning in the eyeballs. And then, you know, what would you do then? You can't fly by braille. Watch out for the lightning bolts in the eyeballs, guys. Right? Isn't that what we talked about last night?
No.
Oh, we didn't? That's weird. So guys, at the end of the day, Brian Phillips RC here to serve your needs and also to grow an appreciation for the sport of RC aircraft. You don't have to fly a $35,000 jet to enjoy the experience. I'm telling you this, I see guys do it and it makes me think I would have a nervous breakdown even if I were a good enough pilot to do it. And for that reason, you have to remember, getting the right plane at the right time for the right reasons is exactly why we exist. We want to help you do that, prevent one and dones, get people off the bench, put me in, coach. I want to play, okay? Right? Mm-hmm. So, we hope we answered all your questions and then probably a few more. And we might have even given you some questions to think on. Like, do I need to go beyond this plane? There are amazing tricycles out there, and this is definitely on the short list of planes we would highly recommend. Is it the easiest to set up? Probably not. Is it the best plane? No. Is it really good? Yes. Do I want it? Yes. Am I glad I have it? Absolutely. And yes, I have 300 other planes. Are you going to be happy when you buy it? I would be surprised if you're not. And that's not to say that it's perfect, guys. It could use some LEDs. It could use a little bit more juice, okay? It could have a simpler flight controller, or just better yet, the same receiver they use in everything else currently as bind and flies. I think that would really improve our circumstances and setup. It would make it easier. But at the end of the day, they're trying to accommodate for some features that if you have enough money, you can buy. I just don't recommend them because I don't think you need them. So like I said, perfection out of imperfection. That's what we try to bring you here. We'll show you what's good about this plane and why you might consider something different. But at the end of the day, we don't care what plane you buy. We just want you to buy one so that you can live it up and enjoy the hobby with us and not just watch us, okay? Did we leave any stone unturned, camera crew?
I'm not sure that's possible.
I don't think it's possible in this amount of time. All right, guys, that's all we got for you. Leave the comments and the questions down below in the comment section. We'll try to get to them as we can. If you guys want to support us in ways beyond buying planes just like that, or transmitters just like this, from the links in the video description below, look no further than Patreon for monthly support, PayPal for one-time donations, friends and family, please, YouTube super thanks, and YouTube members. Thanks if you're one of our YouTube supporters on a monthly basis. Just keep in mind, one of the best ways you can support Brian Phillips RC is just watching the videos, and then that's our 20-minute timer going off. And we still have like 33% on this battery. Mm-hmm. That's a crazy flight time on 3200 3S. Amazing, guys. We got 30 minutes on our 4000. That's crazy, okay? Talk about a long flight time. You can fly it on 2200. I bet you get 15 minutes on it. Oh, and we were at 7% remaining on the 4000 milliamp hour 3S pack on our maiden flight that was 30 minutes long, just to let you know, okay?
It was over 30.
And we did hit low voltage cutoff where we pulsed the motor, okay? Yep. So if you haven't seen that video and you want to see it, check it out. Links are not necessarily in the description, but you can go to Brian Phillips RC and find any plane that we have ever recommended, sorted by type, manufacturer, distributor, family, local hobby shop, whatever it happens to be that we're working with. And it's really easy for you there. Now, you can also search for a plane you want to see by playlist on Brian Phillips RC right here on YouTube. But if you can't find it, because there's so many of them there really are, then you might go to Brian Phillips RC for that part. Also, if you have other things that you just don't know and we didn't cover in this like 5 hours of video, we are here to help. We really want to help. And if we can't immediately help, we have so many people that are in this community that follow Brian Phillips RC that will probably chime in and answer your comments. So just go ahead and leave the comments, questions, and we'll see what happens there. It should be really positive. So guys, awesome hobby, awesome experience, not easy, not necessarily cheap, but once you get into it, it's not too bad. And a couple $100 a month will keep your whistle pretty wet. Okay, you want to really get serious, you're probably gonna spend a little bit more than that, admittedly, but you know, you get into it for, you know, a couple hundred, $300-400, you're gonna be in it flying. A couple $1,000, you're gonna have a few batteries set up, and then you're just looking at a new plane every few months. And it's gonna, I'm telling you, it's gonna touch you deep like other hobbies can't. Okay, I know this from personal experience, and I want you guys to be touched. All right, that's all we got for you here on Brian Phillips RC. We appreciate you watching. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for your support. Come back for more.